Game show here. As this series, we're getting into the thick of it, and this is a big one here. I heard Stephen A saying that whoever wins this game's going to win, basically what you said after Game 2.
I know.
I'm going to say whoever wins Game 5 wins this series.
Game 5, regardless of what happens here?
I'm just saying what someone else said. Every game's important
I mean,
here.
listen, this is the swing game. This is regardless of this dynamics of this series. Game 4 is the game where you either go up 3-1 or you tie it up. And that's, historically, that's the game that matters most. And I think you go back to the 2022 finals, I always think about that game. The Celtics can hold off that Game 4. They probably have another ring right now. So I don't think I'm being dramatic when I say I think the winner of this game is in control of this one.
I thought you said that about Game 2.
And it was still valid. It was valid after Game 2 also, They put themselves in a hole, but I think the reality is that the more I rewatch those first 2 games, and I think Drew Holiday kind of echoed this at shoot-around today, the more I realized that they lost that game. It was in their hands, and I think that's where their confidence comes from. But yeah, this is a must-win now.
It's been interesting talking to you the last couple of days because
I was so negative after Game 2.
Well, you're going in the right direction, but you're still like, oh, I'm nervous. This is they got an uphill climb here.
Nervous.
They've been up 20 in every game, though. You should feel very confident in them right now.
They've been up 20 in 6 of the 7 games that they've matched up with the Knicks this season. 3 out of the 4 regular season games and all 3 playoff games. So from that standpoint, it's like they don't have to sit there and be like, what can we do to win these games? What do we have to scheme?
That's how I feel.
It's not like that. But that just because in theory you have all the pieces to win and you can, that doesn't mean that the actual execution is going to be easy. And I think that we've seen that through 3 games here. Game 3, the Knicks didn't really have much of a fight. They never cut it to below 20. But in the first 2 games, in theory, that never should have happened, right? But it still happened. So you have to kind of account for that, even if it doesn't necessarily make sense theoretically.
So let's throw it back to the Game 3 because, again, biggest difference, they staved off the comeback attempt. And the Knicks did push from 31 to 20. So that's a pretty significant amount of ground to make up if you're them. But they stopped it at 20 every time. And it was free throws. It was their own offensive rebounds. It was the lineups, too. And the Pritchard thing was so significant. You stressed it going in. It was obviously the story of the game, him playing more and him giving them something different there with the 30-plus minutes. But I go back to the same question I had going into that game when you gave that take is how do you get more minutes from him when you have to pull it from someone else? It was Holiday in that game, and that was probably the right move. But I don't think you can predetermine coming into a game when White and Holiday are both so important. Oh, this guy's going to get a little less here and Pritchard's going to get a little more. But this series might call for it.
Listen, I think in Game 3 it was obvious that Pritchard had the hot hand. He checked in, 7 points in that first stint in that first quarter. And offense is hard to come by right now. Everybody's struggling, right? Tatum, Brown, Brunson, Cat, none of them are as efficient as they were.
Where does he rank on the team in terms of guys that can get their shots off? He's pretty high.
It also depends on how he's being guarded. In this series, he's really high because I don't think New York, through 3 games, has really schemed to stop Peyton Pritchard. Versus Orlando, he was having a hard time because they were prioritizing taking away him, Hauser, Derek White. So you can approach these, the Celtics team different ways. This is a dynamic team, obviously. I think my biggest thing as you look at this, these games is that just nobody has been efficient. So for him to come in and hit 50% of his shots in this series and in these playoffs, it's honestly not limited to this series, that's huge. And so whether it continues to be a huge factor tonight, I would expect New York to come back. Rewatching that Game 3, they must be setting themselves saying, we can't let him have that easy of 23 points because he was stepping into threes that were uncontested. It was just too easy.
He got up the floor quick, too.
Yeah, they're going to try to make life harder for him.
Yeah, and they got to push it. I think you got to keep the pace up in transition even when you're ahead in these games. And I know it's a tough balance there, but it's so frustrating to see them slow down. And like we've talked about with pretty much everybody here, I don't know who you've asked about how they feel about this game and stuff like that. Everyone I've talked to said it's probably going to be the same deal. Celtics go up big. Can they maintain that lead? Can they stay out of crunch time with the Knicks? That's a big one, too, because that feels like the only edge that Celtics have in this series or the Knicks have in this series, rather, is their ability to steal games in the clutch. And Joe talked about coming into the series. They can get there. They can figure out how to find themselves in that situation.
Well, they have the clutch player of the year, and we've already seen in the clutch that they've been able to steal 2 games. So you don't want to get in that position. You also don't want to get in that position because then it's not in your control anymore, right? When it comes down to a 2-point game with 3 minutes to go, suddenly the officiating can come into play, or just missing a good shot, or things like that. So that's why you don't want to end up there, and that's why you do end up there, and we all on the outside scrutinize whether Joe should have called a timeout or not. We're kind of missing the mark. Where that's not why that's not where things went wrong here. So the biggest thing that I have going into this game is that the stars, all of the stars on both sides, have yet to really show out here. And somebody's due for a big game. One of these guys is gonna go off for 40. One of these guys is gonna play their best level of basketball.
On the New York side or either side?
Either side, both sides, right? You have 4 All-NBA players between the two teams. So to me, that's inevitable. And right now, it's been a battle of the role players, right? Game 1, it's OG Anunoby. Game 2, it's Mikal Bridges. That you have Peyton Pritchard. Derek White's been steady through the series. So that part, that's what's been happening so far. But something's going to give. And so it's kind of a question of like who goes off first? Is it Jason Tatum or is it Jalen Brunson? Is it Jaylen Brown or Karl-Anthony Towns? Because right now, they've kind of been canceling each other out with the offensive struggles.
And Towns coming into this game with a finger injury, wasn't on the injury report. Seems like he's going to be fine playing through it. Really, I downplayed it coming out of the last game, even though everyone saw the clip of him getting hurt and his big reaction to it. So I want to see how he looks early in this game. There'll be no Sam Hauser. A bit of a surprise after how good he looked at shoot-around. I think we were both pretty confident he was going to play in this game. They haven't seen him at all in this series effectively, so I don't think that's going to impact them too much here. But all eyes will be on Porzingis again and how he looks, how he manages his minutes, and how he's able to get up and down the floor and be effective, because I know you didn't like the way he looked last game at all.
I mean, he's just a limited version of himself. We'll see if he's feeling better. Obviously, he's farther removed from that initial crash that he experienced before game 1 of the series. So maybe we start to see a little bit more of a previous version of him that is just more effective. I thought he looked pretty good.
We got some Knicks fans.
Let's hear some predictions.
Hey, get back over here. We want to see how you're feeling.
Let's hear some Game 4 predictions.
All right, Game 4 predictions. Right now, it's a little scary right now. We lost the last game, but today, Brunson is gonna win. Brunson's gonna carry us today. We're 2. Knicks in 5. That's all I gotta say.
Knicks in 5.
What about you? Do you have a take for us? Yeah, no.
This is what I love to see.
Knicks in 5. That's it.
What's your biggest concern?
Biggest concern?
I'll tell you my biggest concern.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
The first quarter, I'm afraid of going down 20 again.
Can't go down 20 again.
Bro, 3 games in a row we went down 20. I'm afraid of the comeback. We can't do that. We gotta play some defense. We gotta lock up, hit our shots.
You going in tonight?
I'm not going in, but I'm gonna be drinking, and I'm gonna be lit. You feel me? I'm gonna keep that energy up.
Go get lit, my man.
we gonna be.
Are you old enough to get lit?
Yes.
Okay.
Enjoy the game.
I'll take your word for it. I'm glad to see
the
this.
police over here.
I'm glad to see this version of Knicks fans again.
There's nothing that Bobby hated more than seeing depressed pre-Game 1 Knicks fans.
Where was this? This is the Knicks fan base I know. Yeah. Now, it's not crazy out here. It was much better than this on Saturday.
Yeah.
I don't know if the loss is getting people down or it's Monday or whatever. Maybe we're on the wrong side, like you said, but...
No, I think fans have a short attention span. Like, you're a prisoner of the moment, right? So the same way that Boston fans couldn't even, think about the series before game 3, I think Celtics fans are also, they're feeling really good right now. They're still trailing in the series, right? So it's whoever has the most recent win, I think that fan base is just has a different energy to them. So these Knicks fans, I think if they get the win tonight, we're going to see a whole different feeling out here.
I haven't seen a ton of Celtics fans yet. You didn't really feel their presence in the building the other night like you have in a lot of these road games this year. That's
the first road game this season where I didn't really feel like the Celtics fans were a factor. Towards the end of the game when the Knicks fans cleared out, you could hear them, but they really weren't a factor in the outcome of that game. They didn't have much of a footprint. Maybe Oklahoma City during the year, they didn't have much of an, but I think it's just a reality of just how commanding this Knicks fan base is. And honestly, I heard the Knicks fans at TD Garden more than I heard
they
the
took
Celtics
over
fans at
certain
MSG.
Pockets, behind their bench.
So Celtics fans should take that personally.
You had the guy in the
that was
orange.
a little surprising, yeah.
He was standing on the opposite side of their bench. There were all these pockets of fans who started to resonate as the game went on and really overpower the Celtics fans by the end of that. That was pretty unique. And I thought we'd see both fans invading each other's arenas a little bit. Maybe there's an opportunity for them to do that now that the prices are down a little bit here.
Yeah, I think the hard thing is it was literally twice the price of the TD Garden tickets. And normally when I meet Celtics fans on the road, they're like, I figured out that it was half the price for me to fly down to Orlando and go to 2 games than to just go to 1 game at home. So it's kind of the reverse here. So I think that's part of why you didn't see as many fans travel. Maybe they were also a little bit demoralized from watching 2 disastrous losses. I know if I had tickets, I'd be rethinking, do I really want to go up to New York this Saturday to watch this? It was demoralizing. But luckily...
You were demoralized. I was still confident.
I think the Celtics players are a lot more resilient than the fan base, and that's how it should be.
And this announcer here.
And definitely more resilient than me. I can barely even watch close NBA games, regardless of the Celtics are playing. I just think it's just crazy. But I think you saw a very confident, collected group right after that loss. When we heard from Al Horford and Tatum the next day, there was no panic. When we've continued to hear from players, I thought the best quote so far is Peyton Pritchard saying, as a competitor, there's nowhere you'd rather be than being down 2-0. And I thought about that more, and I was like, that is kind of where legends are
I
made.
can think of some places, but yeah.
I mean, but think about it, though. Everybody says last year Tatum didn't have any playoff moments,
They
right?
love it. They love it for sure because they've been in that situation so many times.
Yeah, but I think, like, where are legends made? Legends are made when your back's against the wall, right? Why does everybody love the 2016 championship? Because they were down 3-1, and they played a legendary team, but they were down 3-1, and they were still able to...
Think of 2008, too. A lot of tough situations for that team.
and that's what creates, like, the legendary stuff. So it's not... You obviously would rather not be down 2-0, but I do understand that competitive spirit of, like, let's embrace this moment and let's capitalize on it.
So, speaking of Celtics fans, we just talked to the biggest one of all out here, Mike Gorman, who stopped by and walked right by us as we were about to get started here. We weren't able to get him on live, but we'll tweet it out in a bit here. His thoughts on what I found most interesting, repeating, because he called the 09 season. It looked like it was a repeat season like this one did for a lot of it. And then injuries, specifically the Kevin Garnett one, made that team fall in the second round, I believe they lost that year.
Yeah.
So this team's in a similar position. Injuries are starting to strike. The illness thing with Porzingis could be a big factor if they do end up losing the series. There are major competitors emerging. That year was Orlando, who ends up going to the finals. Cleveland was tough through that stretch. So it's a similar dynamic for this team now, where they have this great opportunity. Everybody's back. A lot of that team was back as well. But it's just so much harder that second year, and now they're in that position. They weren't in it all last year, where they're down in a series still. And I have a hard time internalizing that because I just feel like they're so much better than this Knicks team. But you're right, they are in an uphill battle right now. This is going to be a moment where you're like, ooh, they weren't looking great right here. And if they do go on to win it all, it'll be an impressive turnaround.
And again, I was looking at the 2021 Bucks team because I asked Drew about that today. You know, they went down 2-0 twice en route to a championship, right? Including going down 2-0 in the conference semifinals, which went all the way to a Game 7 overtime thrill that everybody remembers. Durant had 48 in that one. So just because you win a title doesn't mean that you coasted there. It doesn't mean that it was never at risk. In fact, it means it was probably really at risk many, many times. And just last year's championship just wasn't like that. I mean, the most adversity they faced. No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that they never really were
I love
down.
that line.
Everybody was panicking, right, when they were down 3-1. When they lose to Dallas, like they're going to blow a 3-1 lead. Like that was the most panic I think you saw. Maybe the Miami game. So this is an unfamiliar territory, but these players have been in this position. Drew's been in this position. Al Horford's been in this position. This core's been down 3-2 multiple times. They were down 3-0 and came back for Game 7. So they're not in uncharted territory. It's maybe a little bit uncharted for like the last 18 months. That's all it is.
Yep, and going into this game, the only other thing I'm looking for is the Mitchell Robinson situation, which continues to be bizarre. I think starting him's a no-brainer. I know you feel the same way. James Edwards brought it up on our show last night. I think it's a great idea. Tibbs teased it before the game. We'll think about everything. He's not a big adjustment guy with stuff like that, though. I don't see him changing the starting lineup. It's a great idea, though. Keep him away from the bonus. Let Josh Hart finish the quarters, finish the game. If they do that, all of a sudden I'll be like, ooh, that's a big move.
In theory, I wonder if there's ways that it could backfire that we're not considering, because it also kind of plays
Hart's good. That's the big thing.
Yeah, Hart's good, but also I think that it kind of plays into the Celtics' hands of, like, you basically forced us to change our starting lineup because of this gimmicky thing. Like, there's a mental thing there as well, so... Well,
there's no choice. I mean, the Celtics are going to keep doing it, and he's going to keep missing. I just watched him in his pregame routine.
Oh, my God. Watching him shoot free throws is crazy. Because it's not just something that happens. But I watched him shoot free throws the other day. It's not just like, oh, he gets out there and the pressure of the moment gets them. He's not making these in warm-ups.
I was just asking Michael Pina, is this guy the worst free throw shooter you've seen in your time covering the league? Because he has been in mine. Like, can you even think of anyone else we've watched? There aren't many guys like that anymore.
Forget the NBA. I don't know that I've seen, like...
Anyone? Even in your high school career?
It's the way he looks so dejected when he gets up there. Like, that's the thing that's the most astounding.
And that's what killed this crowd
like,
here.
If he got up there and just missed the free throw and just, like, laughed it off,
why did he put his head down like this?
Oh, my God, I love that. It's just, I don't know. I mean...
You don't see that.
It reminds me of, like, the Sam Hauser missed threes, you know? Like, certain guys just wear their emotions on their sleeves, but I do think that it gives an edge to the opponent. Like, if you're Luke Cornett and you just came in to foul Mitchell Robinson and you see him get that demoralized, you're looking over at your coaching staff like, hey, you know, this game plan has other advantages besides just the lowering the points per possession. So I think it totally worked in Game 3. I do think it's going to be countered because it worked a little too well in Game 3 for Tibbs to not somehow respond.
In true New York fashion, our great producer Ahmed just bought a snack. I won't say what it is, but he got himself a nice dinner right next to where we're recording here. We're right outside Madison Square Garden. There it is. A glizzy. We're hoping to see some more fans come through here.
I'm seeing some green. They're going the other direction, but there are a decent amount of Celtics fans
But
here.
people are just going into the arena. There's not really a lot of congregating. There's not a lot of rallying going on out here, unless it's going on way down there. They're playing some music and all
a
that.
little bit more here.
But I'm expecting another strong crowd presence to start this game. And back to that Robinson thing, that is the moment in the game where things started to tone down a bit. They went down 15 fast. They were down around 20 by halftime. And then when you started to mix that stuff in there, this place didn't have any juice anymore. Were you disappointed with your first playoff experience here, just the atmosphere?
No, because honestly, the crowd had no chance. I always think about, like, the crowd tries to seize opportunities to be lively. They had nothing. So I don't blame the fans here. I think if there was anything they were even engaged, like, late in the game. There was, like, timeout entertainment, and they were rallying behind that. So no issue with the fans, no issue with that. Obviously, like, the outcome didn't give them much to celebrate. I think the thing that I'm wondering is just, is the defensive pressure going to change too? Because when I rewatched the game, the one thing that stood out to me from Game 3 is that, yes, the Celtics got a little bit hotter, but the Knicks defense took a dip.
What were they thinking, bringing their guys back again?
I don't know. I was like, did you guys not watch the first 2 games? But it was definitely a little bit of a defensive slide. So that's the part of it that, even if the Celtics come out exactly the same way they did in Game 3, the Knicks are going to come out better than they did.
Their switching was so good in those first 2 games, and their guys just dropped back again in this game and gave the Celtics open step-in threes, and they hit 50% of them. Now, is that going to continue? Does that need to continue for the Celtics to win, which is maybe the only other concern I have alongside Porzingis, is that they can't get to the paint on this team. The 2-point shooting numbers are absurd for them right now. It is so bad. And Brown, Tatum, I think they've made 3 combined mid-rangers outside of the restricted area in the paint. They can't get to their spots right now. They're getting flattened out. And a lot of their offensive success right now is riding on making threes. Is that going to make or break this game, their ability to make shots?
Probably. And close of quarters and live ball turnovers, as Joe Mazzulla has brought up every single time we brought up shot making.
I agree with the turnovers.
And I think the close of quarters, too. I mean, if you go back to where things went wrong, it is the end of quarters. But we're going to wrap up here. Thank you all for watching.
Wow.
Yeah, we are wrapping up. I got the warning from Ahmed. I got the warning.
Come on, we're outside. We're about to go back to ball. Let's keep it going. End the show.
Okay. That's it for us. We'll have more post-game coverage after the game.